Like I said before, nobody knows the day or hour, but we must know the season. We must know the signs of the times. That is why I am looking at between 2017 2024, like I said in my last video. That's what my research is all about. So the rapture resurrection can happen any time between now and 2024. And look, we can already see one of the components of the tribulation coming down the track right now with this ID badge. So if that's coming, then what about everything else? Now, today, I want to share something with you that's really going to make the hairs raise up on your neck. Do you guys remember a video that I posted last year? It's called Prophecy Confirms Odd Israel Election Rapture Fall Feast Days. I posted this video on September 25th, 2019. This video covered the fact that Israel was having trouble with their elections for the first time since their rebirth as a nation over 70 years ago. In that video, I mentioned the prophecy given by the late Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri. Now, everybody listen up. This is extremely important, time-sensitive information. The Lord led me to visit this prophecy again, and it turns out we all jumped to conclusions about the timeline of this prophecy, including myself. Now I'm going to read this prophecy to you. It's not very long, and I'm going to give you my first interpretation of it as I saw it back in September 2019. Yitzhak Kaduri said, on the eve of the year 5780, the upcoming Hebrew year, the year of corrections, there will not be a government in Israel for an extended period, and the various camps will be quarrel much without a decision on either side. And then on Rosh Hashanah, the new Jewish New Year itself, they will fight in heaven, the holy side against the side of evil, and God and his entourage will decide between them. And this is all I can say, and from here I swore not to reveal more secrets and hidden things. So when I saw this back in September, as the rest of us did, we thought that this whole war in heaven between God and the angels, we believe that the Rosh Hashanah that took place in 2019 was the time when this whole thing will go down. Because if you read this whole thing, that's what it seems like. But it turns out that these events are chronologically written, and each event needs to be finished for the next event to take place. So if you read this prophecy again with that logic in mind, you will see that there are two different events marked by two different periods of time. The first event was the time when Israel didn't have a government that went on for an extended period of time. And that first event was marked by the time of 5779 to 5780. That's the Hebrew year, but we know it as 2019, the eve of Rosh Hashanah, the new Jewish New Year. He says that in the prophecy right there. If you stop and analyze that before you read any more of the prophecy, you will see that this extended period of time has to go on until it's completed before you can consider reading on in the prophecy to see what happens next. Look right here. It says here, on the eve of the year 5780, upcoming Hebrew year, the year of corrections, there will not be a government in Israel. And you know what? Yitzhak Kaduri was right. During this year, 2019, the year 5779, 5780, during that time, there was no government in Israel. And there was no government for an extended period of time. That extended period of time went all the way to March this year, where they finally decided on a unity government. So that whole Israel election mess didn't end around Rosh Hashanah last year. It went all the way to March of this year. That event, it's completed. So now, what happens after the fighting's over and this extended period is now over? Well, what does it say right here? And then. And then. That's a powerful two words right there, my friends. How many times have we seen those two words used in the Bible to separate events and the timing of those events. So take a good look at those words. And then on Rosh Hashanah itself, they will fight in heaven, the holy side against the side of evil, and God and his entourage will decide between them. And of course, this is when Satan and his angels are kicked out of heaven. So if you're looking at this now, this prophecy was not talking about the Rosh Hashanah of 2019. It was talking about the Rosh Hashanah of 2020. Why do I say that? Look at the chronological layout of times and events in this prophecy. One event has to be fulfilled before the next can come to pass. First, he said that the governments of Israel were going to fight and there will not be any government during the upcoming new year of 5780, which would have been Rosh Hashanah 2019. Then once that's all done, then he goes into the war in heaven, where the angels will fight. Now, let me ask you a question. Did it look like Satan and the fallen angels were kicked out of heaven and they're kicked down to the earth around Rosh Hashanah last year? No. It's nowhere near that bad. And besides, if they're here walking the earth according to the Bible, the rapture and resurrection would have taken place right before then. They come down as we go up. So the two events he mentions in this prophecy, only one of them happened last year. The fightings in Israel and their government. And we all agreed that happened last year, right? It sure did. We're not denying it. That's factual. And now those quarrels for an extended period of time to see who's going to rule Israel are now over with, just like Kaduri prophesied in this prophecy. But the second event has yet to take place. So the way this prophecy is laid out, we have each event is assigned to its own individual year. Two events falling on two different Rosh Hashanahs. So Rosh Hashanah 5779 to 5780 Jewish New Year was a time of Israel's dilemma setting up their government. And now the next Rosh Hashanah for this year 2020, which would be 5780 to 81, that will be the Rosh Hashanah where this war takes place in heaven. And that next Rosh Hashanah is going to take place on Friday, September 18th, and it goes till Sunday, September 20th. And here's something interesting. Remember the Revelation 12 sign that took place during the Feast of Trumpets of 2017? Well, it'll be exactly 3 years later from when that sign took place to when Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of Trumpets, comes to pass here in 2020. 3. The number of perfection, the number of finish, lesser to 7. The Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The temple was divided into 3 sections. Outer court, inner court, Holy of Holies. Jonah was in the whale for 3 days. Christ was in the belly of the earth for 3 days. Noah had 3 sons. Peter denied Christ 3 times. Jesus was 30 years old when he began his ministry, and it was concluded with his death, burial, and resurrection when he was 33 years old. 3 close people in his circle of friends, Peter, James, and John. At his crucifixion at Calvary, there were 3 bodies, 3 crosses, 3 nails in his body. God's handprint is all over the number 3. I think we can all agree with that. I think we could just go on and on and on with number 3. Very interesting to see that alignment. Exactly 3 years from Rosh Hashanah, the Revelation 12 sign, to Rosh Hashanah 2020 this year, Feast of Trumpets. And remember, in that Revelation 12 story, you had Israel, the woman, in great birth pains, which is where she is at right now, and the whole world for that matter. You have the birth of the child, the man-child, which represents the rapture, resurrection of the church. You have the dragon that is poised, ready to devour the child when the child is born, but the child is called up to God and his throne. The woman is taken to a place of safety, and then there was a great war in heaven, where the dragon, Satan and his angels, fought against Michael and his angels, and they lost and were cast out of heaven. That is what we see here in the Kaduri prophecy taking place at the next Rosh Hashanah, which I assume is going to be here in 2020, where Yitzhak Kaduri said that on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year itself, they will fight in heaven, the holy side against the side of evil, and God and his entourage will decide between them. Now, here's some more proof of the pre tribulation rapture that I'm sure all you post tribbers completely missed. Have you ever